Our buddy Chris wrote this today. I tweeted this. Nick Bosa's approach to the game is considered pretty unique in Niners HQ, but Kyle Shanahan just mentioned that Bosa's mentality when asked about Talanoa Hufanga, saying their approaches are similar. Shanahan's not a hyperbole guy, so for him to throw that out feels pretty notable. And then Matt Barrows posted the next-gen stats. Hufanga reached 21 miles per hour during his interception, faster than any Niner ball carrier this year. Jeff Wilson on his touchdown was 20.8 miles per hour, tops for a Niners offensive player. And somebody tweeted at us, JR tweeted at us, 40 times are close to worthless, finally. And while I know you don't love necessarily that perspective, I do think it gives us a chance to talk about a guy who we talked about a little bit on Monday night for just his natural kind of feel. And I don't know, maybe his physical talents are better than people realized, but he clearly is one of their key. He is becoming irreplaceable on their defense.
Well, we told the story during training camp about Drake Jackson and Hufanga, talking to someone at Niners camp in their front office about, over the Clay Helton era when they lost a lot of games. Naturally, when you scout players in losing environments, it can be kind of negative. Everyone's losing. It's not a healthy environment. Like, you go into Alabama, you go into Ohio State, you go into Georgia. If they are negatively speaking upon you, that's a bad thing because everything's positive, right? You're winning, you're champions, you're competing for championships. Everyone's going to the league. It's a focused area. That was the opposite of the Clay Helton era. And as the guy explained to me, the difference of like Drake Jackson, who kind of just fell under the category of basically everyone in the program, where it was hard to kind of get to the bottom of everything. It was like there wasn't a soul, no matter how many games they lost, that didn't swear by Hufanga. Basically, the way he described it, he rose above it all, which is very rare. And it's pretty crazy watching USC right now under Lincoln, just how impressive, like, they feel where they're going, Yep. It's clear, like, how different it just was. And he just said, like, nobody, you couldn't find a human being in the building, no matter how ugly a day, no matter how ugly a game, no matter who just got fired, who had a negative thing to say about Talanoa Hufanga. And I think he's representing that since he's been here as just a guy who came in. One, when you're a late round draft pick, you're not guaranteed shit. You're not guaranteed to make the team. Now, clearly he had backers on the team, right? I think it's fair to say the head coach and the general manager really like the player. He fits a lot of things that they look for. Physical from John, just safety, willing to fucking knock you out. And then Kyle, serious, focus, also physical player. Like they clearly have a type. But then you got to take advantage. Like, even if coaches are rooting for you and giving you some opportunities, you do got to take advantage of them. And this guy has beyond ran with them. Because last year he's a role player, right? Special teams, hitting people, came in occasionally, made some big plays. Then has one of the most historic fumble recoveries in the history of the franchise. And this year, I don't want to say handed a starting spot because he had kind of earned it. It had opened up that way. But then once the games come, you do got to play well. And he's fucking dominated, guy. I mean, he has stood out on a defense full of guys standing out. That's what's crazy. Like, to stand out on this defense, it's difficult. And he's one of their better draft picks, it feels like. And it's so early in his career, but I don't want to go this far yet. But you remember Kittle, by about year 2, it was like, God, they hit a home run here with a 5th round pick. He's kind of got that vibe of a 6th round pick, doesn't he?
Yeah, it goes from, they got some good depth with this guy, good value, to, okay, they've got a solid starter, to, they've got a key part of their defense, to, do they just have one of the best? Because if he's healthy, he's going to be playing this year on one of the best defenses in the NFL, which means there will be opportunities to make plays all over the field. And then you just start making plays and you start making more plays. I mean, you look back at him, Johnny was a first-team All-American, which college football, you have to be a first-team All-American to qualify for the College Football Hall of Fame. You can't be a College Football Hall of Famer if you were not a first-team All-American during your college career. So it's it's a significant honor. Now, it doesn't guarantee you any pro success. We know that. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And, he got drafted by a team that values that league. We see a lot of teams on the West Coast. It does feel, I don't know if the numbers reflect this, like the Niners, the Seahawks, the Rams, like guys from Utah, from Washington, from USC.
So much easier for your scouts and your GM to see him, right?
Maybe,
office
yeah,
guys.
maybe it's that. So I think you said it. He is such a fit from a personality standpoint with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Like I saw Eric Crocker today tweeted, like, how is it that Kyle Shanahan's an offensive genius and yet he's got a defensive team? And that's kind of what his tweet was. He got into more specifics, but that's how I remember it. And my response, kind of kidding, was because Kyle Shanahan deep down wishes he was a middle linebacker and not a wide receiver, right? Like deep down, even though Kyle gets kind of this boy genius offensive play caller thing, at his core belief about football is it's about hitting other people hard, not about running by them or jumping over them. His core belief is it's about being stronger and pushing people. And so, I think sometimes offensive coaches put all of their effort and their attention into having a fun or a great or a high scoring offense. And a lot of the credit goes to the players they have and to the player evaluations, Adam Peters and John Lynch, and obviously having good coordinators like Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans. But you do get what you emphasize. And clearly Kyle Shanahan, some offensive coaches, you watch their teams and you go, well, they're getting what they emphasize. And what they emphasize is kind of flashy. When you watch Kyle, I don't think I do think he gets some credit. What he emphasizes clearly is smart, physical, no bullshit, tough-nosed defense. And everyone says that's what they want a team to be. But they clearly he puts his draft capital where his mouth is, right? Like they draft defensive players a lot and not just flashy guys, a lot.
Well, who are his favorite players on this team on offense? George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, all physical ass kickers. Like he's not really in, like, would you say Andy Reid's one of the rare former offensive linemen who wishes he was a wide receiver? But like when I say, what do you think of Andy Reid, right? You think Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill, Shady McCoy.
That's
even like
point.
They draft Clyde in the first round. Like he likes.
Think about it.
Kelsey is. You said last week Kelsey's plays a different position than Kittle.
Yeah. Think about it though. With Andy is a kid who grew up shooting threes, but then was the biggest player, so they put him at center. Andy, punt. How many offensive linemen in the NFL today participate in the punt, pass, and kick competition?
He loved it. He wanted to be a punter.
That's what he wanted to be. And they're like, no, you go over there with the big guys. He's like, no, I'm a quarterback. And
he's a little guy stuck in a big guy's body.
Exactly. So that's kind of Shanahan in that way too. But anyway, I mean, maybe they have a feel for field. You scouted players in the NFL? You scouted college players. I think one of the questions I would have then for people who evaluated like you did is, how do you evaluate a player's feel, right? Because that is the thing when we talk about look how fast he ran in the game versus how fast he ran at the combine. What we're talking about is somebody who plays in a way that is different than how they appear on paper, right? So we're talking about scouting the games versus the traits.
I think the problem with him is he ran a 4.64, and in college he was not playing in space, right? He was up at the line of scrimmage a lot, like he is now. But he weighed 200 pounds. So you couldn't go, well, maybe he could play linebacker, right? He was never going to play linebacker. And people just hadn't seen him play in space. And really, they don't ask him to cover half the field, right? He is up around the line of scrimmage. He is around tight ends. He is, triggering on wheel routes to running backs. Like, they are not asking him to play like their other safeties, like Jimmy Ward does. So to me, when you get a guy, you have to go, we have a plan to use this guy, because I see a lot people overthought it and 40 times don't matter. No, 40 times help determine your value. The NFL draft is a marketplace. It's not his market value at the time. Like, if he's a $300,000 home, you're not going to pay $1 million for him. Everyone acknowledged he's somewhere between a 5th and 7th round pick. So it's easy to go, well, he should have gone in the 2nd round. Well, at the time coming to the draft, there wasn't a soul in the league that thought he should be a top 75 pick. So you drafting him that high would be insane, because you can get other players before you get him. That's where the post conversation becomes kind of weird. I do understand, though. I remember him coming out and early on talking to friends last year of like, what was his deal? And they just said they couldn't find a position. They didn't think he could play safety. And a lot of teams do not have the safety near the line of scrimmage. The safeties are back. So they basically, you have to be able to truly cover. And the one thing we can say about Hufanga is the Niners are not asking him to just man up with guys in the open field or play in space. When I look at the screen, 29 is up around the line of scrimmage, or at least around Fred and Greenlaw, right? He is not back with Odom or when Jimmy's playing. He's not going to be back there. Now, occasionally he will, depending on the coverage, like back pedal, but they are using him correctly. Part of hitting on players, like George Kittle's value, why he became such a star, is the Niners' fucking run game. Immediately they asked him to block, he dominated blocking. Like, you got to ask the guys to do the right thing. And that's why I think they've hit on a lot of random guys, is because they specifically asked them to do what they're good at. Right?
Which is coaching, right? Don't put a square peg in a round hole.
No, and I think it's easy. That's why a lot of coaches are bad, not because they don't know exactly what they want out of their offense or defense. It's because when they get involved in the draft process, they fall for a guy that actually doesn't work with what they're going to ask him to do, and then they get frustrated once the guy's on the team. And it's happened to Kyle. I mean, it happened to every coach or GM, right? You draft a guy and he doesn't fit. But I think the Niners, why they've been able to replenish so many guys, is they found fits. Found fits.
Yeah. You know, you made me think of, when you're talking about draft value, it's what is success for a professional bettor? 55% or whatever the number is, 54.6%, right? Whatever the number is, right? That's what it takes for a professional bettor, the percentage of its bets to hit to be a successful bettor. Think about that. If, that's 45% misses, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right. I mean, like, you just are going to the fifth rounder who succeeds is not unheard of. Somebody in the fifth round is going to succeed, right? It's not like everybody who's a fifth round is a guy that nobody thinks can play.
But I just think people struggle with, once a guy becomes a good player, like, this guy, how Cam Chancellor, for example, is probably the best quote unquote box safety of his generation. He was a fifth round pick. Like, you don't need to get the sweet box safety in the second round. That's just not where those guys are going.
Here, let me read you some of this, because this is all, here's the NFL. This is the
it's Lance Zierlein writes this up.
Zierlein and then Chad Reuter. But strengths, and these are, I'll read you the strengths and the weaknesses, and they'll all sound like they're the same thing. Has the size of a box safety. Eye-popping production in the 2020 season. Forces blockers to account for him near the line of scrimmage. Rarely false steps when reading and reacting to the play. Okay, so maybe that's an example. Maybe he plays a little quicker than he is because he doesn't take a false step. Flows to the football with good leverage. Shows ability to dip under O-line blocks. Comes to balance and drives hips through contact. Hammers anything in front of him from split safety. Good pattern reading off from the slot. Proper angles when tackling. After the catch, limiting yak. Okay, weaknesses. Now, these are all very similar. Broke his right collarbone twice and dislocated the shoulder on the same side.
Well, why would that happen?
Suffered a concussion in 2019. Durability will be a major concern due to aggressive style. So this is Deebo Samuel at safety. Athletic limitations could make him scheme dependent. Overly concerned, looking for misdirection, gets behind on the play. Maybe that's just teaching.
Well, here's an example. Hufanga in the scouting report at USC was 199 pounds. I don't know exactly what he played at USC, but when he got to the combine after it must have been his.
Wait, he was 199 pounds when he got to the combine?
Yep.
That's crazy.
You know what Cam Chancellor was coming out of college?
What?
230 pounds.
Yeah. I wonder what Hufanga now looks like. He's 220.
What would you say? Yeah, I mean, maybe
215.
15. He's just. I mean, Cam was really, really big, but I do think it's fair to go. This is how the guy's going to play. Will it hold? Like, he's already shattered collarbones and got a concussion. He's not going to play differently. Will that hold up in the NFL? And maybe the NFL players aren't quite as big.
The Niners' attitude is, well, let's see. If he only lasts 2 years, then that's what happens, right? That's how they play their guys.
He had multiple broken collarbones?
Multiple broken collarbones and a dislocated shoulder on the same side as the broken collarbones. Now, I don't know if that's 3 injuries or 2, but will struggle to carry vertical routes down the field, sees breaks coming but can't burst to cover them, doesn't gain depth quickly enough with his pedal and swerve. A source tells us, said a scouting director for an NFC team, you don't think he should be able to make so many plays, but there he is all the time near the ball. The injuries are a concern, though, and I think it pushes him down to the third day. So, it's interesting. We've not really talked about his college injuries when we've talked
I
about
didn't realize he was injured so much.
It's probably not something we realized since, when he was drafted, we probably read this scouting report and forgot about it. But maybe he would have been drafted higher if not for all
the I think a healthy, same player probably goes, has a chance to go third, fourth. I mean, Guy, those are major, multiple broken collarbones and a concussion. I just think you go, could this guy immediately get injured? Because that's how he's going to play. To me, if he's uninjured, he probably goes 100 spots higher than, because it was clear, right? Everyone's saying the same shit. The Niners said the same stuff. People I talked to said the same. No one disputed the guy couldn't play. Sometimes I just don't see it. It's a lot of hype on this guy. Everyone's like, yeah, you turn on the tape, 15 makes every other tackle. And he crushes people. The only question is and then he'll shatter his collarbone. That's somewhat concerning, right? If you have foot issues as a wide receiver, right, that there are certain injuries for certain type players that would just make you nervous. I would say shoulders with big hitters.
Honestly, foot with anybody.
Foot with everybody.
I'm nervous for Armstead right now with plantar fasciitis.
Yeah, it's a problem.